working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. Joining me today is from our EBC Vietnam Bureau. Hello, Eliana.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon. I'm Eliana Sebastian from EBC Vietnam Bureau, giving you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. Metro Manila will be under a general community quarantine for the entire month of February.
Vietnam recorded its first coronavirus outbreak in almost 2 months, with more than 18 new cases reported as authorities began testing samples of people to contain the spread.
Myanmar's powerful military raised the specter of staging a coup as it ramped up demands for an investigation into alleged voter fraud during last year's election, swept by Aung San Suu Kyi's ruling party.
The Star Wars identities are now in Singapore, running from 30th January to 13th June 2021 on one of its final stops on the long world tour identities last season.
First, in the Philippines, President Duterte today retained the General Community Quarantine or GCQ classification of the National Capital Region and Davao City. Also under GCQ are Batangas and Cordillera Administrative Region, which includes Abra, Apayao, Benguet, Baguio City, Ifugao, Kalinga, and Mountain Province for Luzon, Tacloban City for the Visayas, Davao del Norte, Lanao del Sur, and Iligan City for Mindanao. Santiago City or MOC and all other areas are placed under modified general community quarantine. The mentioned areas' risk level classifications will take effect starting Monday, February 1, and will last until the end of the month, February 28. MGCQ areas have the least restrictions and are considered the new normal in the country. Earlier, the palace said those aged 10 to 65 were allowed to leave their residences in MGCQ areas, but President Duterte had discouraged children from leaving, noting the presence of the United Kingdom COVID-19 variant.
The government has set new conditions for foreigners who are allowed to enter the Philippines despite the travel restrictions to curb the spread of the new variant of the coronavirus disease 2019, Malacanang said on Friday. In a press statement, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said foreign travelers who wish to visit the Philippines are required to pre-book hotels for quarantine purposes and undergo a reverse transcription polymerase chain reactive test 6 days after their arrival. These foreign nationals should also have pre-booked accommodation for at least 7 nights in an accredited quarantine hotel or facility. They shall also be subject to COVID-19 testing at the quarantine hotel or facility on the 6th day from the date of their arrival, Roque said. He said the conditions were included in Resolution 97, approved by the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases on Thursday. Roque, also acting as IATF-PID spokesperson, said the new rules for foreign travelers will take effect on February 1. Roque reiterated that arriving foreigners should have valid and existing visas at the time of entry. The Philippines has imposed a travel ban on more than 30 countries with confirmed cases of the COVID-19 variant or the United Kingdom UK variant.
Vietnam recorded its first coronavirus outbreak in almost 2 months on Thursday, with more than 80 new cases reported as authorities began testing tens of thousands of people to contain the spread. The infections were detected in northern Vietnam, where one cluster has been linked to a case of the more contagious coronavirus variant first spotted in Britain. In Hai Dong province, the cases are thought to be linked to a factory worker who tested positive for the virus when she landed in the Japanese city of Osaka. She was found to have the British variant. The city where the factory is located has been closed off, and 220,000 people are in lockdown, while medical workers are now rushing to test tens of thousands of people in the area. In Quang Ninh, on the border with China, one of those infected is a security official at Van Don Airport, where international passengers have been arriving before being sent into mandatory quarantine. The airport has been shut while passenger vehicles are banned from leaving or entering the province. The figure was a new daily record for the communist nation of 96 million people, which has been widely praised for its handling of the pandemic, recording just over 1,500 cases before the new cluster and only 35 deaths.
According to epidemiology expert Dr. Charles Yu of the De La Salle Medical and Health Sciences Institute, an inactivated vaccine like Sinovac from China is safer compared to the new generation vaccine because this vaccine is considered one of the oldest vaccination methods. It uses batches of viruses that are killed and then vaccinated.
The attenuated vaccine are the oldest vaccines. 200 na ang 200 years ng history niyan. Siya na ang may pinakamaraming experience ang mga scientifico at saka mga researchers at saka mga clinicians. So theoretically siya yung safest kasi matagal na yan ginagamit. Ang danger lang dyan kung yung mga mutant ay baka mas less effective siya. Pero kung i-compare mo siya dun sa newer generation, mas may track record na yan for safety. So dapat hindi sila matakot, particularly for some of the first ones that came out. Yung mga messenger RNAs also seems to show a safety profile. All I can say is, safety-wise, mukhang okay silang lahat. Pero may mga bakuna, mas gusto naming doctors kasi hindi lang yung efficacy, masyadong obsessed yung ating media at yung mga nagbabasa sa social media dun sa numero ng efficacy. As Dr. Edsel says, sa amin, hindi yung overall efficacy ang importante. Ang importante, and these Chinese vaccines have shown to be effective, hindi mamatay yung pasyente. Mabawasan yung hospitalizations, mawala yung severe disease. So, imbis na grabe, maging mild. Sa amin, yun ang mas mahalaga. Dahil hindi mo makatatumbasan yung pag namatay yung loved one, no? So let's not look at numbers. Hindi yan apples to apples. Apples to orange yan. So dapat maintindihan natin yan.
Staying in the Philippines, the city government of Manila conducted a second simulation of the coronavirus disease mass vaccination that targeted 1,000 community-based individuals. The activity was held at the Rosario Almario Elementary School in Tondo, Manila on Thursday. Manila Mayor Francisco Isko Moreno Domagoso said that the objective of the exercise is to be able to see the flow of the vaccination process. It also sought to observe other challenges to be able to improve the handling of the rollout. He said he chose to conduct the simulation in Tondo as this is the area that was first placed under a hard lockdown.
A Russian social media star with millions of followers has been kicked out of Bali for holding a party on the Indonesian holiday island that broke various rules, authorities said Monday. Sergei Kosenko, 33, was put on a plane bound for Moscow on Sunday and would be banned from returning for at least 6 months. Kosenko, who has nearly 5 million followers on Instagram, made headlines in December after he posted a video of himself and a woman driving a motorbike off a dock. Immigration officials moved against him after he posted another video of a party he held this month at a local hotel, which breached health protocols banning large gatherings, authorities said. More than 50 people were in attendance despite the restrictions. Kosenko is from Smolensk, a city west of the Russian capital, according to his social media, where he blasted his deportation as outrageous.
Meanwhile, frontline medical workers in Myanmar got the first jab of AstraZeneca's Covishield vaccine at the Thuana Soccer Stadium turned hospital in Yangon. Let's take a look.
ဒီလိုမျိုးပြီးတော့မမျှော်မှန်းတော့ဘူးဗျကာကွယ်ဆေးဗိုင်းရပ်ပိုးတစ်ခုရှိနေတော့ကာကွယ်ဆေးကတော့သူအနောက်ကနေလိုက်တော့လိုက်လာမှာပဲဒါပေမဲ့ဒီလိုမြန်နဲ့ဒီလိုထိုးခွင့်ရမယ်လို့တော့မတွေးရမိဘူးပေါ့နော်ပြီးတော့နောက်တစ်မျိုးအနေနဲ့ကျွန်တော်တို့ဒီလိုမျိုးကျွန်တော်တို့လောက်ကင်ပြီးခဲ့တဲ့အတွက်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဦးစားပေးပြီးတော့ဒီကာကွယ်ဆေးထိုးနိုင်တဲ့စည်ရင်းထဲမှာထည့်ပြီးတဲ့အတွက်ကျွန်တော်တို့ဝမ်းလဲဝမ်းသာပါခင်ဗျဂုဏ်လဲဂုဏ်ယူပါခင်ဗျဒီဆေးကိုဘယ်လိုရင်းလဲဆိုတော့ဒီလောလောဆယ်အချိန်မှာတခြားနိုင်ငံတွေကလည်းဆန်းသက်ပြီးတော့ထိုးနှံပြီးသွားပြီပေါ့အဲ့ဒီအချိန်မှာတော့ဘာမှတော့မဖြစ်ဘူးကျွန်တော်လည်းကျွန်တော်ဒီမှာဆိုရင်မြန်မာနိုင်ငံအတွက်ကျွန်တော်တခြားနည်းနည်းတော့ထိုးပြီးသွားပြီမဲ့လေဒီကျန်းမာရေးဝန်ထမ်းနဲ့အခု volunteer တွေအတွက်စပြီးတော့ထိုးနှံတဲ့အချိန်မှာဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်တရားကန်တော့အပြည့်ယုံကြည်တယ်ဆိုရင်ကျွန်တော်မျှော်လင့်ထားတယ်
Myanmar has already received 1.5 million doses of Covishield vaccines from India in January 22. The health ministry said the next group of people due to be inoculated will be members of parliament on Friday and Saturday. Myanmar aims to vaccinate the whole population of about 54 million people this year. The health ministry has said up to 30 million additional doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine have also been ordered, with a further 2 million due to arrive by the first week of February. Eliana and I will be back with more news right after this short break.
Tissue boxes mo. Hindi mo ba alam, mauubos daw ang mga tissue products? Bakit naman? Ang raw materials daw ng mask at tissue products ay iisa lang. Saan naman galing ang balitang yan? Ay basta, narinig ko lang din. Maraming din kayang nagpo-post sa Facebook at Twitter, kaya kung ako sa'yo, kumuha ka na din. Sige na't mauna na ako sa'yo
Huwag basta-basta magpaniwala
sa mga nakikita
o nababasa sa social media.
Magsaliksik at i-verify ang lahat ng impormasyon
Nakukuha sa internet.
Tandaan,
maging responsable tayo
sa paggamit ng social media
nang hindi magdulot ng panik sa iba.
kung paanong dapat labanan ng COVID-19.
Ay gayon din ang ating pagsugpo.
sa black propaganda
At maling impormasyon.
Dennis Lu,
Lou Omelda,
General Partosa,
Tyranel Pililu.
Hannibal Arevalo,
EBC.
Japan,
Euro,
we live in interesting times.
And we're back. Indonesia's Mount Merapi, one of the world's most active volcanoes, erupts, belching out huge clouds of smoke and ash that billow down the sides of its rumbling crater.
Januari Januari pukul 00 sampai dengan tadi pukul 14 waktu Indonesia Barat, Gunung Merapi telah meluncurkan sebanyak 36 kali awan panas guguran dengan jarak luncur antara 500 sampai 3000 meter ke arah barat daya.
Around 3 dozen times throughout the day, some of it traveling as far as 3 kilometers away from its peak. Authorities told residents to stay outside a 5-kilometer no-go zone, warning about possible lava flows. Indonesia sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, a vast zone of geological instability, where the collision of tectonic plates causes frequent quakes and major volcanic activity. Indonesia has nearly 130 active volcanoes.
The Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases has approved the designation of special hog lanes to ensure the unhampered shipment of pork products from Luzon and Mindanao, according to Malacanang today. The IATF-EID, upon the recommendation of the National Task Force against COVID-19 Task Group on Food Security, backed the designation of a nautical highway from Luzon and Mindanao and the Maharlika Highway in Luzon as special hog lanes, according to Presidential Spokesperson Harry Roque in a press statement. Secretary Roque also said the IATF latest decision was contained in Resolution 97 approved on Thursday. The latest directive came as the African swine fever, or ASF, continues to threaten the country's swine industry. Nearly 500,000 hogs have so far been culled in the country due to ASF. ASF has also prompted the sudden rise in pork prices in the country.
A convicted French pedophile will stand trial on charges he used his NGO work as a cover to abuse young boys in Cambodia and Nepal for years, according to a court ruling seen by AFP. Philip Gerard, 51, is suspected of preying on 15 Nepalese and 9 Cambodians aged 6 to 14 between 2011 and 2015, ostensibly during visits as part of his Filmy Solidarity Association to help children in need. A court in Thonon, eastern France, had already sentenced Gerard to 3 years in prison, of which 18 months was suspended in 2005 for sexually assaulting boys at a holiday camp. In 2008, he left France to spend 6 months in Nepal, creating his NGO upon his return with help from family and friends. A Nepal-based NGO, Saagi, alerted French authorities in 2014 after documenting several cases of Gerard with children at various hotels and other public spaces in Kathmandu.
Meanwhile, hundreds of Rohingya are missing from a refugee camp in Indonesia and are believed to have been trafficked to neighboring Malaysia, according to officials and sources. Just 112 refugees remain at the makeshift camp in Lok Somawe on Indonesia's northern coast this week, well down from the almost 400 that arrived between June and September last year. Neither local authorities nor the UN could account for the whereabouts of the refugees from the stateless Muslim minority from Myanmar, who are feared to have enlisted traffickers to help them cross the Malacca Strait into Malaysia. At least 18 Rohingya from the Lok Somawe camp and over a dozen suspected traffickers were recently caught by police several hundred kilometers south in Median City, a frequent staging point for illegal crossings into Malaysia. relatively affluent Muslim-majority Malaysia is the main destination for Rohingya fleeing refugee camps. A Myanmar military crackdown in 2017, which UN investigators said amounted to genocide, forced 750,000 Rohingya to flee across the border into Bangladesh's southeast coastal district of Cox's Bazar, where many ended up in sprawling refugee camps. Thousands have since been paid or have since paid smugglers to get them out of Bangladesh, enduring harrowing, months-long sea journeys fluctuated by illness, beatings by traffickers, and near starvation rations to reach Indonesia and Malaysia.
Myanmar's powerful military on Tuesday raised the specter of staging a coup as it ramped up demands for an investigation into alleged voter fraud during last year's election swept by Aung San Suu Kyi's ruling party. The National League for Democracy, or the NLD, won November's poll in a landslide, but has been much criticized by rights groups for its disenfranchisement of voters in conflict-wrapped regions.
ကျွန်တော်တို့အနေနဲ့ပြောချင်တာတော့ခဏကိုတပ်မတော်အနေနဲ့နိုင်ငံတော်တောင်းယူမယ်လို့လည်းယူမယ်လို့လည်းမပြောမယူဘူးလို့လည်းမပြောပြင်ပါပြီးနောက်ပြန်လည်စမ်းစစ်ရမှာတရားမျှတမှုရှိတဲ့အခြေအနေတွေမယိုးသားမှုတွေတွေ့ရှိရပြီးဝေဖန်ထောက်ပြမှုများကိုလှုပ်ဆောင်နေရခြင်းဖြစ်ကြောင်းဥပဒေကိုမိမိလူရာဆွဲပြီးလှုပ်ဆောင်နေခြင်းများမှာမသိတော့ကြောင်းဖြစ်ပျက်ခဲ့တဲ့အမတော်ယွင်းများကိုထောက်ပြရခြင်းမှာမိမိတို့နိုင်ငံမိတော့ပွဲကိုသိက္ခာကိုများစွာတိကျစေနိုင်ဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ဝေဖန်ထောက်ပြနေခြင်းဖြစ်ကြောင်းအခြေခံဥပဒေကိုမလိုက်နာတဲ့အဖွဲ့အစည်းတွေအခြေခံဥပဒေကိုဖျက်လို့ဖျက်ဆီးလုပ်နေတဲ့ပျက်စီးစေလိုတဲ့ဒီလွတ်ဒီပအင်အားစုတွေရဲ့လှုပ်ဆောင်ချက်တွေကိုကာကွယ်သွားရမှာဖြစ်ပါတယ်။တမတော်ဒီနိုင်ငံတော်ရဲ့စိတ်ပိုင်းပြည်သူလူထုရဲ့စိတ်ပိုင်းဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ရွေးကောက်ခံရတဲ့လွတ်တော်အမတ်များတွေကျန်းသစ္စာမှာတစ်ခေါက်လုံးပါတဲ့ပိုက်ကိုပြောပါကျွန်တော်ဘယ်သူဒီပြည်သူ့လွတ်တော်လားမဟုတ်အမျိုးသားလွတ်တော်ကိုယ်စားလှယ်အဖြစ်ရွေးချယ်ခံပြီးဖြစ်တဲ့နိုင်ငံတော်ဖွဲ့စည်းပုံအခြေခံဥပဒေကိုထိမ့်သိမ်းကာကွယ်စောင့်ရှောက်ပြီးနိုင်ငံတော်၏ဥပဒေများကိုလည်းလိုက်နာပါမည်လို့ကျန်းသစ္စာကျိန်ဆိုခဲ့ပါဒါကိုအတိချက်ဖို့အဲ့ဒီညီလာခံမှာနိုင်ငံဒါကြောင့်နိုင်ငံသားစီစီရေးကကိုရှာဖွေရတဲ့ဆိုတော့ဒီလိုကနာမည်ပြင်နိုင်တယ်
Military spokesman Major General Zon Minton on Tuesday renewed calls for the country's embattled election commission to provide final voter lists for cross-checking, a demand that so far has not been met. The polls in November were the second openly contested elections since Myanmar emerged in 2011 after nearly 50 years of junta rule. But the military still holds an outsized role in the country's politics, retaining control over key ministries thanks to junta's scripted constitution, which dictates an uneasy power-sharing agreement with the de facto leader Aung San Suu Kyi. She has not publicly responded to allegations of voter fraud, but NLD spokesman Myun Myun said Tuesday a coup was not allowed under the current constitution.
Meanwhile, Thailand ranks fourth in terms of success in curbing the spread of coronavirus. Joining us live from Bangkok, here's Cristel Di Marucot. Hello, Cristel.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon to you as well as to all our viewers. Here are the latest news in Thailand. Thailand ranked number 4 in terms of success in handling the coronavirus pandemic in a ranking by an Australian think tank, trailing New Zealand, Vietnam, and Taiwan. In general, Asia-Pacific nations have been the most successful at handling the coronavirus pandemic, as stated by the Sydney-based Lowly Institute. 14-day rolling averages were calculated based on 6 criteria, which are the confirmed cases, confirmed deaths, confirmed cases per million people, confirmed cases as a proportion of tests, and tests per 1,000 people. Data from the 6 criteria were then calculated into a score between 0 and 100, with higher scores indicating a better pandemic response. With an average score of 94.4, New Zealand tops the ranking, followed by 90.8 of Vietnam's. Taiwan and Thailand followed at 86.4 and 84.2 respectively, while Japan scored 50.1 to rank 45th, outperformed by its close neighbor, South Korea, which ranked 20th. Overall, the think tank's analysis found economic status had a minimal impact on a country's response, even though higher per capita income countries had more resources to fight the pandemic. Developing countries had more lead time to implement preventive measures. The Lowly Institute said, and I quote, "In general, countries with smaller populations, cohesive societies, and capable institutions have a comparative advantage in dealing with a global crisis, such as a pandemic," end of quote. And that's the latest news here in Thailand. Back to you, Alma.
Thank you, Crystal. Have a great weekend. Thank you for your time.
You too. Have a nice weekend. This is Crystal Di Marukot reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand, and we live in interesting times.
Jams have been a major concern for us commuters and for the country as a whole. Thanks to motorcycle taxi services, we arrive and even our packages and deliveries reach their destinations on time. Even during the early phases of the lockdowns, bikers saved the day as essential services reached families to stay afloat and kept the economy running. In this episode of Open for Business, we have the voice that represents the country's motorcycle riders and owners whose efforts revolutionized the Philippines' mass public transport system.
Right now is the best time to create a business. Just do it. You have to start. Start it now.
One of the 7 The Outstanding Young Men or TOIM honorees for 2020, George Royeca, the Chief Transport Advocate of Angkas, will join us in this week's episode of Open for Business.
Welcome back. The Philippine economy shrank a record 9.5% last year, but is expected to stage a strong recovery before the end of the year with the rollout of vaccines against the coronavirus. The Philippine Statistics Authority, or PSA, on Thursday reported the GDP posted a smaller contraction of 8.3% in the fourth quarter of last year. Let's listen for more.
When we restricted the economy in the second quarter of 2020, GDP fell by 16.9%, and the unemployment rate rose to 17.7%. However, improvements were seen with the gradual easing of restrictions. In the third quarter, we had a much slower GDP contraction of 11.4%. On a quarter-on-quarter basis, the economy even grew by 8%. Unemployment rate also dropped quickly to 8.7%. In the fourth quarter of 2020, our economy performed better with a smaller GDP contraction of minus 8.3%. This brings the full year GDP contraction to minus 9.5%, which is at the low end of the DBCC estimate of minus 8.5 to minus 9.5% for 2020. On a quarter-on-quarter basis, the economy grew by 5.6%. This improvement was the result of the further reopening of businesses and wider accessibility of public transport since October 2020. However, it also shows the limits of economic recovery without any major relaxation of our quarantine policy.
Secretary Chua also said that the prospects for 2021 are encouraging with the continuous calibrated reopening of businesses and mass transportation and the relaxation of age group restrictions. He said we'll see more economic activity in the months ahead.
Fraudulent financial transactions, including those involving credit card usage, increased in 2020 during the pandemic, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Benjamin Jokno said. In a virtual briefing Thursday, Jokno said other most common crimes involve unauthorized or disputed transactions due to disclosure of personal information and phishing emails based on personal account information and the use of one-time password. Jokno said the most common credit card complaint in 2019 was about disputed transactions, while it was about credit card fees and charges in 2020. He said payment networks follow a stringent protocol on the investigation on these frauds.
ASEAN and Russia reaffirmed their commitment to further strengthen their strategic partnership at the 17th ASEAN-Russia Senior Officials Meeting, or RSOM, held virtually. The senior officials exchanged views on the developments in the ASEAN and Russia, including responses to the pandemic and post-pandemic recovery. Both sides highlighted potential cooperation on research and development of the COVID-19 vaccine and medicine, exchange of experiences in addressing the pandemic, mitigating economic impact, and accelerating socio-economic recovery. They reaffirmed the commitment towards the early finalization of the new ASEAN-Russia Comprehensive Plan of Action for the period of 2021 to 25 to further deepen ASEAN-Russia cooperation over the next 5 years. Director General for ASEAN Cooperation of the Indonesian Foreign Affairs Ministry, Siddharto Reza Suryo Dipuro, and Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Russian Federation, Igor Morgulov, co-chaired the 17th RSOM. ASEAN SOM leaders, their representatives, and the Deputy Secretary General of ASEAN for ASEAN Political Security Community attended the meeting.
Singapore this week launched a 3-month trial of autonomous buses that passengers have to pay to use in a step toward its ambitions to create a network of driverless public transport.
Okay, I felt a bit, it was unnatural to see like the bus driver not driving. But I mean, I've heard of these kind of technologies, I've seen them before. So I think, yeah, I believe this is quite innovative thing, and yeah, it's definitely the way forward. Yeah, for sure. Honestly, it felt like just any other bus. Yeah, it wasn't as if it was jerky or the bus wasn't driving very fast, turned the corners very smoothly. Yeah, it was just another bus ride.
Now, traffic problems have a widespread impact from lost time to deadly accidents. The ASEAN region is midway through a plan that focuses on assessment, design, and operation of roadways. Watch this.
Road transportation has become an essential part of economic and social development in ASEAN. Within a decade, ASEAN has faced a significantly rapid rate of motorization. Under the ASEAN Transport Strategic Plan 2016 to 2025, or also known as Kuala Lumpur Transport Strategic Plan, KLTSP, ASEAN has set a target to reduce the road fatalities by 50% in ASEAN member states by 2020 and work towards further decreasing the forecast level of road fatalities in ASEAN by 2030. In achieving Kuala Lumpur Transport Strategic Plan's target, ASEAN member states have aligned and implemented the road safety initiatives in accordance with the 5 strategic pillars of the United Nations Decade of Action for Road Safety 2011 to 2020, namely Road Safety Management Pillar, Safer Roads and Mobility Pillar, Safer Vehicle Pillar, Safer Road Users Pillar, and Post-Crash Response Pillar. Each ASEAN member state has developed their respective national action plan on road safety, and in order to coordinate and supervise its implementation, collaboration among relevant agencies in various sectors has been established and worked well within ASEAN member states. Recognizing that a safe road infrastructure is essential in ensuring the safety of all road users, several measures have been initiated by ASEAN member states through the implementation of road assessment and improved planning, design, construction, and operation of roads. To ensure the vehicle's safety for both passive and active safety, ASEAN member states have developed the vehicle inspection system in accordance with their respective national regulations. In 2011, the Malaysian Institute of Road Safety Research, MAROS, as one of the ASEAN Road Safety Centre, has established the new car assessment programme for Southeast Asia to elevate vehicle safety standards and encourage a market for safer vehicles in the region. ASEAN member states have also implemented measures to improve road users' behaviour through public awareness programmes in their respective countries. These measures are combined with sustained enforcement of law and regulations to increase seatbelt and standard helmet wearing rates, reduce drink driving, speeding, and other risk factors. ASEAN member states recognise the importance of an immediate alert response system to post-crash emergencies and the appropriate emergency treatment for road crash victims, and established the Trauma Centre and First Aid Response Service to respond to the emergencies which can occur anytime and anywhere. Following the Phnom Penh Ministerial Declaration on ASEAN Road Safety, issued in 2004, ASEAN established the ASEAN Multi-Sector Road Safety Working Group to coordinate the implementation of road safety action plans in national and regional levels. In 2015, the ASEAN Transport Ministers have issued ASEAN Declaration on Road Safety Strategy and adopted the ASEAN Regional Road Safety Strategy, which provides a framework for road safety strategies at the regional level in accordance with the United Nations Decade of Action for Road Safety. Cooperation with ASEAN's dialogue partners and external partners to improve road safety in the region has been well established. With Japan and the European Union, several studies have been completed and several dialogues have been convened to share experiences from both regions in improving road safety. In line with the goals set under the Kuala Lumpur Transport Strategic Plan, ASEAN will continuously put its best effort to improve road safety and to reduce road fatalities in the region. These efforts will ensure a higher level of safety for the road users in the region and to keep ASEAN roads safer. Ultimately, all these actions will lead into the establishment of an efficient, safe, and integrated regional land transportation network within ASEAN and beyond.
Turuan din natin ang mga bata ng tamang paghugas ng mga kamay. Basain ang kamay ng tubig at lagyan ng sabon. Kuskusin ang iyong mga palad. Gayon din ang pagitan ng mga daliri. Pati na ang likod ng mga palad at daliri. Ganon din ang iyong hinlalaki. Kasama ang mga dulo ng iyong mga daliri. Pagkatapos, gawin ito ng kahit 20 segundo. Pagkatapos ay banlawan ng tubig at patuyuin.
Welcome back to ASEAN in Focus. Former world number 1 Ratchanok in China landed a crucial victory over Indian star PV Sindhu at badminton's World Tour Finals in Bangkok on Thursday. It was a double victory for Thailand's hopes, as 13th seed Pornpawi Chochuang also booked a semi-final spot after a shock win over Taiwan's top-ranked Tai Tzu-Ying. Intanon trailed for most of the first game against Sindhu, but with a combination of athletic footwork and killer instinct, managed to come back to win 21-18. The 25-year-old Thai then took the second game 21-13 to claim the match. Both players were coming off an initial loss in the round-robin tournament. Sindhu, the Rio Olympic silver medalist, was beaten by Thai in a 3-game thriller on Wednesday. Fifth seed Intanon was upset by Chochuang in 3 games on Wednesday too. On Thursday, Chochuang, 22, went into her match, having never won a game against Thai in previous encounters, but won 21-17, 21-11 in 37 minutes.
Now this week, Daniel Craig, best known for his portrayal of the James Bond movies, called on the international community to rally behind the Cambodian government in order to achieve a landmine-free Cambodia by 2025. Take a look.
Across the world, playgrounds are seen as safe places where children can play with freedom and joy. But in some countries, this is not the case. In Cambodia, the legacy of war continues. Millions of explosive items are littered across the country and still injure and kill people, and this includes children. The fact that they are known to exist creates fear, anxiety, and insecurity. The Safe Ground campaign transforms mine-contaminated lands into safe sports facilities where young people can play. It aims to bring attention and resources to survivors of explosive ordnance. I am happy to announce the opening of the new Safe Ground in Cambodia, and I look forward to when I will be able to visit in person. I strongly support the United Nations Safe Ground campaign and hope that you will too.
Over a 27-year period, the Cambodian government had spent over $160 million on mine clearance, while the international donor community had contributed over $216 million.
Star Wars Identities is now in Singapore, running from 30th January to 13th June 2021, and one of its final stops on the long world tour Identities has taken. The exhibition is a show featuring models, props, and costumes from the popular space fantasy franchise. To be held at the Art Science Museum at Marina Bay Sands, the event will feature some 200 items from the Lucas Museum of Narrative Art in Los Angeles. According to the Straits Times, the exhibition will focus on the original trilogy saga of Star Wars 1977, The Empire Strikes Back 1980, and Return of the Jedi 1983. Also covered are the prequels 1999 to 2005, the animated series Star Wars, The Clone Wars 2008 to 2020, and the film Star Wars The Force Awakens in 2015. On display are original props, artwork, costumes, and starship models like the Millennium Falcon and an Imperial Star Destroyer. Star Wars fans can also be able to view concept drawings, storyboards, model making techniques, designs, and puppetry from the franchise. Tickets go on sale on January 15 at $25 for adults and an $80 family package for 2 adults and 2 children.
And finally in our news, the Tasek Merimbun Heritage Park. This is in Brunei. It's one of ASEAN heritage parks, both a natural and cultural heritage. This is the country's biggest wildlife sanctuary. Take a look. Thank you, Eliana, for helping me out today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Alma. And that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. I'm Eliana Sebastian from EBC Vietnam Bureau. We live in interesting times.
We'll see you back next week for more of ASEAN in Focus. I'm Alma Angeles, and we live in interesting times.
Sa mundong waring walang puwang para sa kanilang pagmamahalan, sapat ba ang tibok ng kanilang mga puso upang bumuo ng daigdig nilang sarili? Inihahandog ng Eagle Broadcasting Corporation ang kauna-unahang romantic teleserye ng Net25.